All right, guys. So it's a good Saturday morning, and after millions of yawns, let's carry on. And we have done last time this firewall, and you can refer to the video where we covered it. So we're kind of good here with the firewall settings. Um, but okay, here, Network Watcher, we're gonna go for some other points here. I'll be going back and forth and switching between the topics to cover as many as we can. So now we're going to talk about Network Watcher. These are all the objectives, exam objectives of Azure security course, and the labs that I need to show today. So some of those labs will be here. Now, let us go ahead and check out what is Network Watcher, and just a few million windows are open here. Okay, deleted all the resource groups. We're good now here as well. Okay. So I'll just go to Network Watcher, right? So Network Watcher is so what is Network Watcher? And first of all, it gets created automatically um, when you create a VNet or virtual network. And there will be a lot of screenshots here. All right. Oh, seriously, we have to do that for everything. So I was creating some screenshots, guys, and those are really, no, on my nerve. Okay, just a sec. It's just I'm just distracting my screen here. So I'm just gonna switch to the diagram here. This one. Now, when we create a VNet here, create VNet. So what happens is that a network watcher resource gets created automatically, right? So what happens here is that this network watcher, what does it do? So we created a VNet. Inside the VNet, what can we do? We already know that. Create subnets. We can create subnets inside the VNet. We can create VMs inside the VNet. Network watcher, as the name says, watches the network. What a way to explain. Network watcher watches the network. The thing is that there are so many tools inside the network watcher, many network monitoring tools inside Network Watcher. It's a collection of monitoring tools, and it watches what is going on in the network, monitors the network traffic, lets us check if there are any bandwidth issues, like there's so much traffic going on, and so many users are saying, "Oh, our file, it did not reach the other side when we were doing a network sharing," and network security related information as well. So it just tries to check everything but that is going on. So Network Watcher tries to check anything that is going on with VNet and its VMs and subnets. And whatever traffic is going out, so outbound traffic, whatever traffic going in, so inbound traffic, right? Outbound traffic it keeps an eye on, and also inbound traffic, so you can get the log files, right? Um, okay, I keep doing that. Now, once that is the case, so I'm just gonna go back to this network watcher to just explain some more of the things. So, Azure Network Watcher provides tools to monitor, diagnose, view metrics, and enable or disable logs for resources in an Azure virtual network. So it's everything's going on for VNet or virtual network. Network Watcher is designed to monitor and repair the network health of IaaS or infrastructure as a service products, including virtual machines, virtual networks, application gateways, load balancers, etc. So whichever object or resource is sending or receiving network traffic, then network watcher monitors and even repairs it. Okay? So whatever resource is sending or receiving traffic. Network watcher primarily supports IaaS resources, so infrastructure as a service, where you create virtual machines, you create storage, where you create databases and containers and everything. So that is IaaS or infrastructure as a service. Network watcher tools are separated into four broad categories: out of the box monitoring tools. So there are some monitoring tools inside. So we're going to create a network watcher. We're actually going to create a VNet and virtual network, and then we'll see that as a result of that, a network watcher also got created. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to explore the monitoring tools inside the network watcher, tools for performing diagnostic checks, tools for performing monitoring tasks, tools for measuring connectivity and latency. So I'm going to check all the tools. That's how it looks like. Network watcher. There's topology you can check. That's a pretty cool thing. At which you can actually see a diagram at who connects to what. IP flow verify, NSG Diagnostics. So this is all how Network Watcher looks like, and this is how it actually shows the diagram that this machine is connected to this database, and this database is connected to this storage. It actually shows you proper diagram of the VNet it is connected to, right? So that's pretty cool. And connection monitor tools that it has. Uh, let's go ahead and try to just create a few million screenshots for some of the labs I was working on, and so since 5:30 or 6 o'clock. Okay, so there I'm kind of um, really already yawning and in snooze, and suppose I go to sleep while during the lecture, just wake me up, right? Okay, anyway, so what we need to do is I'm going to go to the Firefox, and I am already logged into my Microsoft Azure, and so I'm already logged into Microsoft Azure. We're talking about Network Watcher, and Network Watcher is it watches the network, right? So it's just a monitoring tool for the network, right? It's part of the AZ-500, so that's why I'm just going through it. Now, for Network Watcher, if I just go to the resource groups here in Azure, so Network Watcher is already there. I'm just going to delete that just to show that again, because how does it get created is also something that we need to know. So it's getting deleted, but uh, what I'm going to do is I'll just simply try to create a virtual network. Chris says in the chat, should I be able to access the labs and recordings in the Fedora account? Yep, yes, Chris. So if not, then let me know. And or when the class is ending at that time, just stay there connected. Uh, yeah, at the end of the class, just stay connected and make sure that you are able to connect. I'll just simply fix it. ONK. So whoever doesn't have the access to previous labs and videos for this course, let me know and stay connected in the class, and I'll make sure that you're connected to. Well, this is pretty much the second last class of this course. Very few topics left. So then, yeah, if you still don't have access, let me know. All right. So I'm just gonna quickly go to the portal menu here, and then I'm gonna go down to the virtual network, these one, and I'm gonna click the virtual network here, and then create virtual network. And why are we creating a virtual network? To check network watcher. Now, resource group. There is only one resource group. I'm just going to create a new resource group here because it's still in the process of being deleted. The network watcher resource group. Click that. It's still deleting the previous one. It was created by me as a practice, right? So it's still being deleted. I'm just going to create today's resource group, which is RG, resource group RG, and 08 Pro 2023. And oh, well, I'll just name samosa. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, this is today's most favorite snack, and I should not be mentioning that right now. Okay, so I'm already hungry now. Okay, so virtual network here. Now we will create here virtual network. So it's Ahmed Azure virtual VNet that to Azure one East US. And then I'll just go for review and create, and then create and 8. Ah, 8. Seriously, I should not say something that refers to eating. Okay, create and 8. So I'll just switch to create. Okay, we're creating the VNet here. Once we have created a VNet, so I'm just going to go to the VNet here, virtual networks. That's the VNet, right? So if I go now to the resource groups, um, the I deleted the network watcher, so I think it didn't like me, and it actually didn't create that. So it was already there. Normally what happens is that when you create a resource group and especially a VNet, then a network watcher also gets created. But I think it detected one network watcher, so it did not create that, or it is in the process of doing that. So we can just wait for it. Otherwise, oh, there you go. It's already there now. Well, one older network watcher I deleted, but the newer one got created after the VNet. This is a resource group, and this is the resource group for network watcher. After the VNet got created, this got created automatically. A resource group got created with which is called network watcher RG. It names it automatically. It is by Microsoft programmed that way. If I go inside, then there's just that collection of as you know some tools there that are the only purpose of those tools is to monitor. The purpose of network watcher tools is to monitor. So network watcher East US is written there, and that's the resources that we see here, and this is the resource group where group of resources are there. I'm just going to go inside that network watcher, and this is the actual application. But thing is that it's not really showing all the tools. So if I go back to the diagram here, so network watcher, when we go there, so normally, yeah, because it just deployed right away. And we got into this instantly right after the deployment. So that's why it's not showing everything. So what I'm going to do is I'll just go back here and even, I'll just type here network watcher. Yeah, there you go. So when I type network here and in services, there's network watcher right here. So when I click that network watcher, so it just then shows all the tools that are there. Since it's part of the AZ-500 security course, so that's why we're going through it. There are many things that are related to this. So if I go to the links here and put those links in the chat here on WhatsApp as well as in WebEx. These are the links to see what exactly Network Watcher does. I'm just going to click one of those and I'll put it here. So what is Azure Network Watcher? Azure Network Watcher provides tools to monitor, diagnose, view metrics, enable or disable logs or resources in Azure Virtual Network. It is designed to monitor and repair network health of infrastructure service parts. We talked about that before as well. Yes, it does monitoring, um, and so view resources in a virtual network. So it does offer topology related services as well. If I go back to this here, so there's the topology option here as well. If you have obviously some bigger network, so I have created a resource group here, Network Watcher in this, no Network Watcher present in this subscription. So well, that's the only subscription I have. And if I go for VNet here, and so it says that enable Network Watcher, and then it will show you that who's connected to what. Suppose if I have in the VNet, this VNet that I just created now, suppose I have, um, this VNet here, and if I have maybe 20 subnets and 3,000 virtual machines or something like that, so it will show pretty much the whole topology of that VNet. It's pretty cool. And you can then connect the second VNet. Suppose I have 2 or 3 or 4 VNets here. Each VNet is having multiple subnets and multiple connections to storage account, multiple connections to private endpoints. So this really shows the whole topology. Right now, I think I'm asking to zoom everything, initial template, submitting to source group. Yeah, I already did that. And it did show me as successful. Yeah, it is showing again. Go to the source group. Deployments. Again, I'll just go there. So right now it's not really showing, but it is going to show. I'll just go back to we were doing. I was just doing some kind of experimentations, so for that it is showing. So I will come back to this, but topology is supposed to show all the diagrams, and that's what I was showing here in the slide. That it is supposed to, if you have a bigger network, so which network card is connected to which exact resource, which virtual machine, which load balancer is connected to. So it all shows that. So one thing is that then the connection monitoring tool is there. I go back to this network watcher. So it is once it's topology connection monitoring classic is there. And basically, if you have made some connections there, so which resource group, which source, which port, suppose 3389 port, management port is there, or 1433, which is database port, or HTTP port 80, or HTTPS port 443. So what is the source and what is the destination that you're connecting to or the connection? There's a connection monitor classic, then there is a connection monitor written here. If I click that, so it takes us to that. We have not created any connections, so that's why it is not showing much here as well. But it does contain all the information about if there were connections made. from the VNet virtual machines to any other destination. So that's connection monitor. Then there's network performance monitor here. If there is at network any kind of performance checks you need to do, so there is network performance monitor. There's a add NPM or network performance monitor. It needs a workspace to have some kind of performance related information given to you. Basically, these are monitoring and most cool would be the topology here that you would want to know in a big environment that what's connected to what and where. Other than that, there are some diagnostic tools here. IP flow verify. Watcher IP flow verify checks if a packet is allowed or denied from a virtual machine based on a five tuple information, security group, region, and the name of the rule that denied the packet to be returned. The thing is that it just checks that when a virtual machine is sending some information, so suppose there's a virtual machine and it is sending some information. So this is to a machine and it is having a network card. So this samosa like shape is network card NIC. And this is VNIC, virtual network card, obviously. And from there, whatever traffic is coming, so all inbound traffic from outside to inside, and all, especially outbound traffic from within the virtual machine to outside. So obviously, whatever data is going on, it's in the packets, it's traveling. And if that data is denied connectivity to somewhere, then that IP flow verify just checks that how the flow of traffic is going on. Right? So it will ask then that okay, which virtual machine to check the traffic flow of. So it needs a virtual machine name and network interface. So if I go back to virtual networks, okay, local version, okay. So I have created Armor VNet 1, right? Why don't I just create a virtual machine just for example, and I don't need that. I'm just going to quickly create a virtual machine here and add it to the VNet. So we could just add that virtual machine's information there. So I'll just add the resource group here and VM-1 east US and no infrastructure needed, standard security, and yeah, everything is okay. Just the username is our admin and small ABC currency shape 123 without shape 123 and small ABC currency shape 123 without shape 123 and yeah, so RDP. So this is the port we're going to connect. I'm not bringing any license. So disks, nothing in the disks here to show the network watcher related stuff. So that's why I'm quickly creating a virtual machine. I'll just enable some other type of traffic as well, HTTP, although I don't plan to use it. Other than that, auto shutdown backup, no, nothing needed here. Monitoring, enable with managed storage account. For now, I'm disabling the diagnostics of the machine itself, because then it will create a separate storage account for me as well. And they will charge me for the storage account in the long run if I keep it running for long. But anyway, no other type of diagnostics for now. Advanced extensions, VM applications, user data, host, I'll click tags and then plus create to create a virtual machine. Validation passed, 3 and 8. Excuse me. Virtual machine is getting created. If I go to the diagram, so there's a virtual machine and it is a part of VNet. I just created first I created a VNet and within the VNet I just now created a virtual machine. So this is the VNet -1 and the virtual machines inside. Obviously, it's not directly in the VNet. We should always make sure that we understand the whole scenario. It's always inside a subnet inside the VNet. So subnet, and that's the default subnet, the only one subnet here. So first the VNet, then the subnet gets created automatically. And the virtual machine always is within any of the subnets. Excuse me. So if I go back here, yes, the virtual machine is also created, and I'll just keep it open by clicking that virtual machines. So this is the tab for virtual machines. This is the network watcher tab. This is the VNet tab. Just go back to the network watcher. So this is the network watcher, and it says that, hey, you want to know something about IP flow for any virtual machine? So I say, yeah, if you can detect that. Oh, it's not even detecting the source code. That's the only subscription I have. So I'll just go somewhere else and then come back here. Now everything fills up. So it detects the resource group, detects the only virtual machine I have, and its only network card that it has. And then it says that, hey, you want to know the TCP related information, you want to know just the inbound traffic, this machine, or just outbound. So local IP address is this, and local port. So yes, if the machine is sending data to something, so then you will go for outbound. You want to check that, you go for outbound. Or if it is receiving data from somewhere, so you have to just define that which port is receiving. So is it HTTP traffic that it's receiving, or is it HTTPS secure traffic, web traffic it is receiving, or it is database traffic 1433 it is receiving, or 3389, which is RDP, somebody's connecting to this virtual machine, if that is going on. Right? So local port is this, remote IP address, then you have to mention, suppose I am connecting from my home DSL to this virtual machine. Although detected, why is it detecting private IP? Because I when I was creating a virtual machine, I think there was a public IP there. So anyway, but the remote IP address could be any of the public IP. Suppose I go for what is my IP. So currently my IP that keeps changing very soon. All your IPs, public IPs, given to you by your ISP like Rogers or Bell, are they change real fast. So if it is know if you need to assign that where is the remote IP. So remote IP would be wherever over the internet you're connecting, or another virtual machine within this vCenter you're connecting, then you can just put that IP there as well. Suppose there is another virtual machine here, then if you're making connection from that virtual machine to this virtual machine, so then also it will just check what is the traffic going on, or how's the IP flow. It says in the chat, can we assign multiple local ports here if we want to check multiple incoming traffic? So this should be allowed. So the local port acceptable values are single integer. Okay, so it seems like one port that needs to be added, but once it is created, then you can create another check for another port and another check for another port, because it needs to still give you specific information about specific traffic, in fact. So I put all this information. Maybe it's not acceptable for this, but I'm just gonna click check. Well, there is no data going on. In fact, why don't I just try to connect to this virtual machine from my home? I'll just go to connect, RDP, and download, and then I click you. Okay, download. There you go. And it's up there. I click that. It says, oh, you want to connect? Yes, I say I want to connect. Oh, what's your username and password for the virtual machine? I just put the username and password that I there when I was creating, and it says, do you have a certificate? I said no. It's a self-signed certificate which has no value, and then it connects to the virtual machine. Well, I'll let it connect and log into the virtual machine, but okay, well, access is allowed, it says, and security rule used was RDP, it says, and network security group was this. So it gave me some information. But if I just say that check again, what's going on? I connected from this port. Obviously, the machine's public IP was used. If I go to the virtual machine here, an overview. So yes, there's a public IP that was assigned to me, and there's a private IP also available there. Connected through public IP, honestly. So it just gives me certain report here. Well, specific information. Yes, you were able to connect with this protocol. Okay. The thing is that if flow logs are here, actually, IP flow verifies here, flow logs are here. So your unsaved data, hey, is there a save button here? No. Okay. I can define it later as well if I have to check. You didn't create any flow log or create flow log, try changing or clearing your filters. So I'm just going to click create flow log. And then it goes for flow logs, allow you to view information about ingress, which is incoming traffic, and egress, which is outgoing traffic through a network security group. So flow logs will then check the flow and put it in the log files that, hey, this kind of traffic was moving. So if I go to select resource, I'll say that this is the security group this is a security group that is attached to the virtual machine. So if I go to the diagram here, obviously we know that from the whole course that we were doing that when you create a virtual machine, a SG or a security group gets created. It is like a firewall, and it allows nice traffic. So we asked it to allow RDP traffic, which is port 3389. So now network monitor or IP flow says that, hey, I'm going to connect to this SG, and then I'm going to check what's going through this SG. So obviously the traffic goes through SG because SG or security group allows or deny traffic. So IP flow will connect to this SG and will check that whatever ingress or egress traffic or inbound or outbound traffic is going on, and it will log it, or it will keep with a timestamp a report of this type of traffic went at that time, or suppose there was a disconnection. So it will log that information, and it will be all in the text files or log files. Excuse me. So if I go back here, I'm connecting this to log file, and it says, hey, do you have a storage account? Because we need to save the log files in the storage account. Really? Okay. I was just resisting urge to create a storage account, but there you go. Store. Oh, cannot be caps. Storage ACC root chart. Seriously, what's wrong with me? Seriously. Okay. And standard local redundant resource group. This. Okay. So I've been creating a storage account where, oh, it's not Java. Well, anyway, so storage account is getting created because the flow logs will create log files. What is the log file? Log file is just a text file that saves information with a timestamp. So, oh, that was a brutal alarm. Okay. So anyway, it's going to save the log files, which are just text file, 1 MB or 1 MB text files that we saved in the storage account. So it's saying, hey, go create a storage account. Obviously, it's going to charge me the storage account, but if I keep it long, if I just delete it in 4 hours or by the end of the class, obviously then it's okay. It doesn't charge me much. So, but that's okay. So it's going to create a storage account now. Creating a storage account where it's going to save the log files, and the log files will have information about whatever traffic is, coming and going to and from the virtual machine. So that's what the whole infrastructure needs. Create a storage account, you create a resource group, you create a VNet, and they all work together happily, and they live happily ever after. Okay, a storage account also has been created to save the log files. Then there is storage account, yeah. Configuration, if I go to configuration, so it says that logs version 2, version 1 log ingress and egress IP traffic flows for both allowed and denied traffic. Version 2 provides additional throughput information, bytes and packets per flow. So, version 2 just gives more information about what traffic was allowed to go and what traffic was denied. So other than that, traffic analytics provides rich analytics and visualization derived from flow logs and other Azure resources. Drill through GeoMap, easily figure out traffic hotspots and get insights into optimization. So what it says in English that, hey, you want to see some fancy graphs showing information that was collected from those flow logs. So then you can create those, but that requires log analytics workspace, which is a big powerhouse of collecting data and then showing it in a fancy graph. So yes, you can do that, but that starts another long list of you have to log analytics is another application that then you have to workspace that you have to create first. That also takes much time, but obviously if you want to see the log files in a fancy way, then you can do that. I'm going to click tags here without creating that log analytics, and then click review plus create, and then click create. So what we are doing here is that and there you go. Deployment says no, I'm not going to do that. Deployment to resource group, blah blah fails. Additional details from the underlying API that might be helpful. At least one resource deployment operation failed. Please list deployment operations for details. Are you kidding me? So what I was trying to do was to create a flow log, network watcher east, and then operation details. If I go to operation details here, status failed, subscription not registered. Ouch. Use Microsoft Insights. Oh, I cannot use Microsoft Insights, which is another application in the background that gives insights or takes a lot of details all from the log files. So it says that register dash resource provider PowerShell command led. It says that subscription not registered to use Microsoft Insights. Now, there was no mention of that it's going to create Microsoft Insights or it's going to take benefit of Insights application, but it NSG flow log will not be it will not get created. So if I just go for this a Cloud Shell here and create storage here as well, another storage, it was mentioning that run a command and it will let you create that Microsoft Insights. So that commandlet can be run in Cloud Shell as well. So there's a Cloud Shell. You can run Azure commands in PowerShell or Cloud Shell. And I'll try to do that. Oops, did I do that? Yeah, I was supposed to click this. Yeah. And so it was giving that, was looking at the external memory events. Yeah, operations details. And there it was saying that you should run these. So now, if I right click here with fingers crossed, so it says the following: there's a source provider, and there's a provider namespace. The provider namespace request ID provisioning, provision, something provided a namespace. ID to source ID, source deployment correct ID. So provider namespace could be that's just the deployment. It is not going to we deployment name. That's the same thing, right? Okay. So I'll check that terminology wise. Invalid, blah blah. Okay. So the thing is that I'll just try to click the redeploy if it just works. But the thing is, mainly you create flow logs, so log files could be created there, and they would just simply check. Otherwise, my subscription is trial subscription, so it might give you error if you have a but not trial, pay as you go. But I think there are some billing issues going on there, so that's why it's not letting me install some of the extra stuff that I want. The main idea behind IP Flow is flow IP Flow verifier is that it's going to let you check the IP flow there. So I'm just going to go back to this IP flow here. In fact, we were going down to flow logs. If you want to create the flow logs, in fact, it did get created. A provisioning state is failed, but we can always redeploy, and it does like that. And after that, whenever you are connecting or connecting back to and from something, so flow logs will have log files that will let you see that what went on. If suppose your traffic was rejected for some reason, it's going to give you that reason. Right? So that's flow logs. But if I go there back to then NSG Diagnostics, so NSG is again network storage account, NSG. So it says that network security group or security group. The diagnostics tool provides what? Detailed information to understand and debug the security configuration of your network. So if you want to know the security configurations of your network, obviously you configure the security in network security group. If I go to the diagram here, so whatever traffic has to enter, SG says that from which IP traffic is allowed to come and what kind of port, what kind of traffic can come from where. So obviously this is from where the traffic is allowed to come, and this is what type of traffic from where allowed to come is all controlled by this SG or security group. So that's why it says that detailed information to understand and debug the security configuration of your network, which SG or security group controls. A given source destination pair, NSG Diagnostics returns all NSGs that will be traversed, rules that will be applied in each NSG, and the final allow deny status of the flow. So traffic is coming in and out through SG, so it will give detailed information about that from security perspective. So I go to this and supported resources, a virtual machine. I have a virtual machine here called VM1. Any kind of traffic connecting traffic details. I'm specifically concerned about inbound traffic. Suppose I tell it that, and then source IP says an IP cider. So IPv4, yeah. Okay, now I have to mention the IP as well. IP cider is this. Is it the public IP I should be mentioning or with the private IP? Because I'm connecting from public destination IP. Actually, this is sorry. You can see that there's a destination IP here, right? If I go to the machine, is that IP. So it's asking for source IP where I'm connecting from, which is my when I try to check I have a Bell connection, right? So my IP from Bell that is temporarily given to me, it will change very soon. So that is this. So it's just asking that where is the source, who is connecting to it. So I say that okay, I'm connecting from my home DSL and destination port 3389, and that says check. So what I'm saying is that whatever is going to now, if I go to the diagram, I am trying to connect from my home DSL internet to this SG through SG to this virtual machine. So I'm telling that, hey, I'm connected to this virtual machine to this source IP. So why don't you just give me some diagnostics, security diagnostics, details about security in this report? So then you click check here, and if everything goes well, then it's supposed to say something, or it should. There are diagnostic logs here as well, but you have to create a storage account for that. You have to configure that for detailed information. And there's something showing here, traffic status denied. Traffic will be allowed if all NSGs allow it. So apply to this. Applied action is denied. SG. So this is just the diagnostic also uses a port, and I have only allowed this virtual machine 3389 traffic. So if I go to networking here, and if I go to so RDP 3389 is only allowed, right? But if I go here and just add any source in any destination, any kind of traffic from anywhere, this is like a party, whole planet I'm inviting here. Whoever wants to connect, go and connect. If you know this machine exists, just create it there, any, and yeah, anyone from anywhere can connect, right? So once this rule is added, then you can do a check. If it's too early to check, maybe the background synchronization hasn't really gotten that the machine is now allowing pretty much everything, but still hasn't updated this. But it says denied, although I am connected through 3389 right now. Destination port is still written 3389, and if I go star, check any port, right? It's inbound traffic, and well, other than 3389, I'm not doing anything else. So it's supposed to then give some details here. If it says that, oh, I think that it is access is denied. So it thinks that, but okay, so there's such status is disabled right now. So you have to just mention the resource group, and then you have to mention which resource type that you want to check. There's a virtual machine interface. Yep, network interface is connected to the virtual machine, and the resource is this virtual machine. But if I go back here, it just says that okay, whatever the information I gave there, it just now tries to ask me more questions. I want to do audit. Yeah, and send to log analytics. No, I have to storage account. I did create a storage account, but okay, yeah, there's a storage account. So it's just going to grab this much information and send to some storage account. All logs, all metrics. So you can just keep on selecting that collect what and send it where. Okay? All this. It's not really letting me save that right now, so I'm just gonna go back here. So again, the thing is that overall, you have to configure the flow logs and you have to configure the diagnostic logs. And then they have to be enabled. NSG should be giving you the right report for the right virtual machine. And then, once you start the diagnostics, then it keeps collecting the log files, and then you can check the security security going on. So let me say in the chat, which port NSG Diagnostics uses? Well, they didn't mention that here, but it's going to be in Learn More, should be in Learn More. So Diagnostics is a network watcher tool that helps you understand which network traffic is allowed or denied in your Azure virtual group. Now, I was connected successfully through 3389 port, and allowed or denied report said that I'm actually denied this uh, while I'm allowed. So actually, the report was not good. Your resources, how does NSG really work? Given flow after you provide details like source and destination, NSG Diagnostics tool runs a simulation of the flow and returns whether the flow would be allowed or denied with detailed information about the security rule allowing or denying. So somehow, I mean, maybe the network diagnostic tool might be fasting and it didn't have water or food, so it was saying denied to something that I'm able to connect to. So maybe with several other tries, or after some time when the background synchronization is done, which means that the information about the whole environment is with the NSG, then it can give the correct report. But yes, that's how it looks like. That's how it works. And now you know the components. You can just try on your side as well. But no, it doesn't mention which port it is working on. But right now, it's giving a wrong report. And I don't think we have to add anywhere uh, the port for this diagnostic because it's Watcher is Microsoft product. It is living on Azure. So it's using the backbone network uh, to simply Microsoft local backbone network. It is using to connect to the machine, so it is allowed to connect to that and give us the report. But the thing is that right now it may not be connecting, or I might be trying too soon to check that if the traffic, what the type of traffic is denied or allowed. So once everything is deployed, maybe give it some time and then try again. But that's how it looks like, and the main purpose is to understand what is this for. Then there's next hop here as well, which means that what is the next thing it is connected to right now, the virtual machine. Specify target virtual machine and destination IP address to view the next hop. So destination IP. So source IP is the machine's private IP. The destination IP, if I just give my public IP here or my home IP, DSL IP, which changes very frequently. So between this machine living in Azure East US uh, and my IP, which is in Toronto. So what is the next hop for this virtual machine? What does it connect next? And then the next, and the next, and the next, and then finally it reaches my Bell ISP and then my building, my DSL. So it's supposed to then tell that information unless it didn't like something here and gives error. So what is the next hop? What does it touches next? Well, it goes to internet. Thank you for letting us know. Obviously, it goes to internet. Uh, so it just says that I'm sitting home and it's from Azure. It's saying that next hop of this machine it reaches internet, and from there, so it is reaching you. So wow, this is something new for me. Seriously, I thought that it will give the next router IP, which would be the ISP that is providing internet to Azure, something like that. It's a network point. So what is my hope? Hop. I did say hope. So hop is just next ping or next device that it connects to, or next network point. Yeah, you can say that over the network. What is the next router it touches? Right. So if I go for hop, there was a command for showing hops as well. That was why I have terminal. Seriously. Right. Okay, can I open CMD here? So just the idea of hop is there was a command. I think, oh man, I used to know that command. gives 30 hops. And suppose you go for a ping Google, and there was some switch that would tell, um, okay, ping help, help like this. Okay, anyway, so but it was something related to, it would tell hops right away. Right? Obviously, it's just one Google search away. Ping command switch that shows next 30 hops. Trace route, yeah, exactly. Trace route. Path ping also is there. But trace route. So trace assert, that's how it's written, but it's called trace route, but it's written like this. So google.com. So now it's telling, it's going, so it's gonna reach the, we're supposed to reach the bell routers, and from there it's gonna go to some telecom. Bell is a telecom. First it goes to ISP, then telecom. So whatever addresses are coming, the next 30 routers that it's going to touch and then go ahead. It's supposed to tell that unless the router is not giving its information out. So then, yeah, tracer. Exactly. So it is just gonna keep on hopping, and it's gonna go from my home network to the connected ISP. And yep, now it's going for Tron. So some server that is their Bell. Yeah, see, Bell connection. So it's giving me the Bell connection information. And Bell servers or Bell routers is just touching. So these are the hops, right? Until it reaches some nearby Google, uh, hosting data center, a server. So mostly data center, right? So the thing is that these are hops, these are routers that it is touching. So that's just an example. All right. So let us go back here to. So it's just telling the next hop here. And effective. So I'm just gonna go ahead. Yeah, these are just real-time information right away then and there. It's giving effective security rules. Right now, select a network interface below to see the effective security rules. No associated NSGs found. So it is really strange that right now it's not able to catch some of the information that is already there. Um, so this means that um, it may not be connected. The network watcher may not be connected. So if I go to add subscription region East US, and in East US I have US 2, right? Okay, East. So it doesn't give East US only, it's giving East US 2. So this means that it's already having, yeah, it's connected to East US. Okay. So why is it not giving the correct information? Maybe it's just not ready with all the commands in the background. So that's why. Yes, VPN troubleshoot if you are connected with VPN. So we have the VPN lab. We have done that lab. So you can refer to the previous videos to check the VPN lab. Packet capture. Now there is a sniffer here that they say there. Sniffer catches traffic. There's a uh, very popular sniffer called Wireshark. You've heard about it. So there's that packet capture here as well. If I click the add button here, so it says that which virtual machines traffic you want me to capture and save it where. So I say storage account or some file. I already have that storage account created, right? So and then what protocol, any local IP address, local port, remote IP address. So if the traffic is going from one place to another, then you need to mention all that, and then it's going to start capturing traffic for you in a storage account. So that's pretty cool, right? This means that, and it will be in the .cap extension. The packet capture output file .cap can be stored in a storage account or in the target VM. So that's pretty cool. If you can capture some traffic of a virtual machine, well, that's a virtual machine here. And whatever port, suppose you're transferring files, you're copying files over the network, or you're accessing a website and then downloading something from the website. So that's outbound traffic. So between your machine and that virtual machine, you can just put all the information here and then start capture packet. So it's pretty cool stuff that is inside the network watcher. You should be back the Sing catch and troubleshoot. So that's just the overall connectivity. Are you connected to some other machine? So, well, source and destination cannot be the same. So this is a virtual machine here. That is the source. Then it says, hey, destination type is virtual machine. Well, source is a virtual machine. From this virtual machine, where are you connecting? So if you were connecting to somewhere else, if there was another virtual machine, you can just put there, and then it will say that how is the connection quality and health in the two virtual machines, right? So this is pretty cool that it tells you some of the good network related information, which is pretty cool in network watch. Then there is users as quota, and that is just how much you can use and what is the quota provided to you for your free account. Logs, yeah, you need to properly configure it and create all the other apps as well. And the same is for diagnostic logs. It is disabled, but you have to just make sure that they are enabled. So the thing is that this needs to be worked out, but the main point is that if you want the log files to be created in a storage account, then you need to properly configure the whole environment. But what it is for, it is just giving you all the network, virtual machine to virtual machine, VNet to VNet, inbound, outbound traffic related reports and information. So it's pretty neat set of tools to check your network connectivity in Azure. So that is one thing that we wanted to discuss. So it's pretty straightforward kind of stuff that is there. Then comes not very straightforward stuff. In fact, I was in the process of creating a private link service lab, which is a bit more tougher. So I still have the private endpoints lab, which does explain much of the private link service concept as well, and obviously the virtual network service endpoints. So virtual network service endpoints and these two are pretty much work together. Because endpoint is something that you want to connect to something. So first of all, let's just go to that private endpoints related topic and talk about it. Okay, talk about it. What is private endpoint? And it is part of the AZ-500 exam objective as well. So private endpoint is, yeah, I'm just looking at the other screen where there is detail, but I'll just go back here. What is a private endpoint? And let's try to talk about that too. We have actually a VNet and virtual network point. So private, if we go there, and then endpoint. So private endpoints. If I click that private endpoints, and it shows here, there's a learn more. Here, click the learn more. Then it just doesn't let us learn more. So Azure private endpoints. What's the big deal with it? That's the whole concept. What is a private endpoint? A private endpoint is a network interface that uses a private IP address from your virtual network. This network interface connects you privately and securely to a service that's powered by Azure Private Link. By enabling a private endpoint, you're bringing the service into your virtual network. Okay, what does it mean in English? So, oh, they didn't give. Well, okay, there's this diagram, but I have another diagram that can show it a bit more easily, that can explain all this concept a bit more easily. So I'll just go back and open the diagram here. Control C, I think, yeah, online OneNote copies only to uh, offline OneNote. That has been the note related. Okay, where is Azure? Seriously, I didn't create an Azure tab. I'm just working on the other side and created an Azure tab. Okay. And from there, I'll just copy here. So that's the diagram here. And it is showing two VNets. And those VNets have, you can see here, there is customer subscription and there's company created services. So there are customers who want to connect to a company, suppose, right? And there are virtual machines here, and there are company created services that are there, and there is a load balancer here. Then there is private link service, and then there is private endpoint here, and then there's a virtual machine of a customer. So a customer wants to connect to these services here. The customer connects to a private endpoint. Now, before we even start talking about private endpoints, suppose a customer wants to connect to a virtual machine. So we know one thing: if it has public IP, right? Public IP. So we can, from our virtual machine or from our laptop, we can connect to that virtual machine through public IP. But the problem is, what is the main requirement? Why would we even talk about private endpoint and private link? Because the main objective is to reach the Azure resources with private IP, not public IP. That's the main objective here. If it is the machine has a public IP, obviously it's available over the internet, and hackers just need some primary information about a virtual machine that has a public IP, and they could try from anywhere on the planet Earth. They can try to start making hacking attempts on that virtual machine. So why don't we put virtual machines on private IPs and then try to connect to them? So that's where it happens. Another example would be that if you are connecting from Azure, which suppose you connected with Azure virtual machines from here, you want to connect to some Azure services from Azure virtual machine to another Azure service. So another Azure service is, suppose, SQL database. So the SQL database has a lot of data you want to access, right? So that SQL database, when you try to connect without private endpoint and private link service, so what happens is that it first connects to internet, where all the hackers are waiting on you, for you, right? So it connects to the internet and then connects to Azure SQL database. Both things are in the cloud. So you're connecting from, first you connect to an Azure virtual machine. From Azure virtual machine, maybe you want to make a connection to the SQL database, Azure SQL database. But first you have to go to internet, and then from internet. Obviously, they do try to secure it, but you are touching the internet anyway. And then you go to your SQL database. But how about you want to skip this internet and through Microsoft private backbone network, right? So Microsoft backbone network. So it's only purely Microsoft network, not the internet, the Wild West. So you connect to the Microsoft backbone network, and through that you make that connection. Okay, understood. So through that you make a connection. Oh, that's so cool. I didn't touch this line. Okay. So anyway, so the thing is, instead of connecting to internet and then connecting to another Azure resource, you are connecting to Microsoft network, and then through private only the private IP of the SQL server you are trying to access. So that is thanks to private endpoint. You have to configure the private endpoint. Private endpoint means it we are telling Microsoft, hey Microsoft, I want to connect to your other resource from the network, internet. I want to connect to your other resource through your provided private network, right, in the background. So this would be the main purpose of private endpoint and private link. That you want to switch. You don't want to use internet to access any other SQL resource. You want to use Microsoft backbone network, and the other resource can have a private IP then, right? So private IP means you're pretty much secure because private IP is not available on the internet. It is only available within the private networks. So, and private IP ranges are the 10.0.0 range, right? And 172.16 range, right? And 192.168 range. These are the only three private ranges that are accessible from internet and you can use it anywhere in the private network. So that is what you're using to connect from Azure Virtual Machine to Azure SQL database, and you totally avoid internet, go through Microsoft network. So that's very good security you can implement, right? So that's why, hence, it's part of the security Z500 topics. Now we need to do a lab on this where we connect. So there's a virtual machine that we're gonna be VNet that we already created, a virtual machine we already have. So we're gonna be creating a SQL database, and we're gonna make a connection to the SQL database with private IP, and the whole process will go through the private endpoint, the private IP, to the SQL database, right? So through the endpoint, we're gonna connect to the SQL database, and we're gonna make sure that now, or what's the proof now the virtual machine is not using public IP to connect to the SQL database, but it's using the private IP to connect to the SQL database, right? It says in chat, we have to have a Microsoft backbone network. Oh, okay. So that is the function of private endpoint. Yes, we have to have a MS backbone network. Yes, if going through the private endpoint. Yes, exactly. Otherwise, suppose you don't deploy that, you never configured it. So basically, you are still able to connect to the SQL database. Now you're going through the internet and then reaching the database, which is not secure. So from security point of view, this is not a good strategy. So Microsoft came up with our endpoint. So now we need to actually go with the private endpoint lab. So we need to prove that this is going on. So how do we how are we able to get the private endpoint? So what we're going to do is for this, uh, this the diagram here, and give me suggestions. All right, so that's the diagram, but the point to links here, I'll just put here. All right. So we can do now is to create environment. I'm just gonna put some of the basic steps there, the private endpoints. So these are steps that we need to follow and check that are we able to configure a secure private endpoint between two resources, which are one is the database and the other one is a virtual machine. Both are on Azure, right? So both are on Azure, but we will try to connect from that. So the virtual machine that we're going to create, and that virtual machine needs to be connecting to a SQL server with the help of private endpoint. If it is able to connect, then basically we have connectivity, or we have a private connectivity. If you're connecting from on-premises, obviously you need to have VPN or the Bastion host. We have done all those labs in the previous classes. So here it's VM to SQL Server. Then we're going to talk about SQL Server specific securities as well. So let's create that. Obviously, it's inside VNet, and that inside a VNet, and then inside a subnet. Excuse me. Recent. Wow. Seriously. I'm really sleepy. This means VNet, and then subnet. Subnet. So within that, you have a VM. So we already have a VNet here. We already have a virtual machine here as well. So if I go to our environment, environment, okay, right here. And so do we have a virtual network? Yes, we have a VNet. And inside the VNet, excuse me, we have a subnet. But there is a kind of traffic that we need to create. Oh, okay. Yikes. You know what? I put the steps for the wrong lab, the lab that I'm still working on. I put the steps for those. So those are the not the steps for private endpoint. Those are the steps for private link, which is a much bigger lab. So these are not the steps for that. Here, we just go for create one VNet, and then um, so create one VNet and subnet. Obviously, subnet gets created automatically. Create an VM virtual machine inside this VNet. Then create SQL Server database with SQL Server. Database always is inside a SQL Server. Then we need to create a need to go to private link center and um, then click private endpoint. So that should then do the configuration. What we need to do is in the VM download SSMS, excuse me, SQL Server Management system. I think it was that also session. No. something like that. SQL Server Management something. But what it does is it's a client to connect to SQL Server, right? Download this SSMS, and then try to connect via SSMS client to the SQL Server and check if this connection was made to a private IP. If it was connected to private IP, it's through private IP that you were connected. So this means that which means that we used private endpoint to connect to the SQL Server. All right. So from VM to SQL Server, normally how we connect is that when we are connecting to the SQL Server through, suppose I'm connecting from home, uh, and a home machine, I have SQL Server Management Service. So SQL Server SSMS client. The SQL Server is sitting in Azure, right? So in Azure Cloud, there's SQL Server. So how normally we connect that when I'm making a connection, it adds, it asks that, hey, I'm gonna add your public IP, right? I'm gonna add your public IP. It does that always when we are connecting to a SQL Server from home over the internet. Okay, there you go. So David says SQL Server Management Studio. Yeah, S for Studio. Does not system. Thank you. So Studio. Now its newer version is Data Studio. Okay, so here, add your public IP. First, it adds your public IP. Which public IP? Your DSL or IP, right? The ISP provided IP changes as well. So it you add your public IP and it connects. Then it connects to Azure SQL Server. But when we make a connection through private endpoint, so it should not ask that what is your public IP, and will be adding that public IP to the firewall. It adds that public IP to firewall that is protecting the SQL Server to fire. Wow, I'm writing from mouse. Firewall. So that's going to happen only if you're connecting without a private endpoint. But when you connect from SQL Server, and yeah, we're going to be deploying obviously uh, SSMS client here, right? SSMS client, yeah, SQL Server Management Studio, and that from that client, we're gonna make the through private endpoint a connection to SQL Server, Azure SQL Server, that is. Azure SQL Server. So that's what we intend to do. But if we were connecting from home, then it will first add our public IP to the firewall, and then it will let us only connect. Otherwise, it won't let us connect at all. So that's what we want to avoid. We are not connecting through internet. Okay, so overall, that's the purpose. I'll just copy this as well and put it in WhatsApp and put it here as well. That's our intention. Okay, now let's go ahead and start configuring it. Now, what we need to do is we have a VNet already and a subnet. We have a virtual machine running inside the VNet. So if I go ahead and want to confirm that, so yes, virtual network is there, one subnet is there, default subnet, and if I right click and duplicate tab here, I need the other tab to show the virtual machine. So I'll just go to the portal menu and then go down to virtual machine here. So we have a virtual machine here, and that is East US as well, like obvious and Lee. I'm just gonna go inside the virtual machine and check in the overview if it is connected to, well, it is connected to the same resource group. Yep, it is connected to which VNet? Yeah, this is the VNet, our VNet 1, and this is that VNet, our VNet 1. So, yep, everything's there. So we're going to go ahead and the next steps. So the next steps would be to create a SQL server, and the SQL server related now during the SQL server creation, it will ask for, hey, you want to connect over the internet or you want to connect to a private endpoint. So it will ask that already, through SQL server creation. And then we're going to go to the private link and we're going to check that. So we're going to create a SQL server. That's the next step. And also let's visit this area as well. Where is the private endpoint showing right now? If I go to private link center, the private endpoint shows here. There's nothing created here now. Other things are private link services. This is another upcoming lab that I want to show you. Oh yeah, so let me say, please show the steps. Oh yeah. If you haven't created the VNet, well, I can start from scratch. That would be, interesting. So the thing is that I've created a VNet already. I've created subnet got created automatically. Then I created a virtual machine that is inside VNet. So shall I delete it and show you? Like it's not gonna take much time, but so you want I can delete the VNet and VM now, and then start from scratch the whole lab. It will be a full separate lab. So you want me to do that, or you want to create VNet, subnet, and VM yourself? Let me know. So yeah. Um, so yeah, VNet. Go ahead and it's okay. This means so. Oh, the steps. If you want to see the steps, these steps, you mean? Oh, okay. So uh, let me put it in WhatsApp. Steps are here now in WhatsApp. So you can take a screenshot yourself now. Once done, okay, let's then go and ahead. Welcome. Okay. So let's create that. And now I'm going to go for, creating a SQL server. So this is the tab for VNet, this is the tab for virtual machine, this is the tab for private link. In private link, we're expecting a private endpoint when we create a endpoint once we have gone through the wizard of creating a SQL server. So I'll just make another duplicate tab here, which will be the SQL Server tab. We're going to create a SQL Server here. I'll just go down here, go to the SQL database. So when we are creating a database, it then asks for creating a SQL Server as well. I'm just going to click Create SQL Server. And here, basics, so create a SQL database with your preferred configurations, complete the basics. Yeah. So what is the resource group? Yep, the resource group that we create today. What is the name of the database? So a name is good. Like your first name, so Amir database -1. So then it says that what is where is the server? SQL server. Don't have a SQL server, so it says you want to create this database. You can only connect to a database through a SQL server. SQL server is the machine to which you connect in order to connect to the SQL server database. Yeah, SQL Server database. If you want to connect, you have to connect to SQL Server. So I'm going to create a SQL Server now. So I'm just going to click create new. And here, server name. So whatever server name, actually this is, yeah, server name, our dash SQL dash server dash one database dot windows dot net. So this is available over the internet. It is also on in East US. Here it says that you want to connect only with Azure Active Directory authentication. I say that, well, both SQL Server only authentication and Azure Active Directory authentication. So SQL Server, when I say, so then it is going to create a username password inside the SQL Server as well. So I'm just going to put the username password as I always put, Amir admin, or in your case, your first name admin. Put that small ABC, capital C, shape 123, without shape 123, C, capital C, shape 123, without shape 123. All right. So this is the SQL Server database that I'm just going to press O and K. So the SQL Server is created, but it also says, hey, why don't you just set an admin here as well? If I click set admin from Azure, which user account? Well, I'm going to just put the locally logged in account, which is the global admin. Well, with all the powers. So I just say that, hey, this is the admin of this SQL Server. So once you have created the SQL and server, so this is the SQL Server. I'm just putting that screenshot there. And I'm just going to press OK. So I'm in the process of creating a database. And database wizard says, hey, have you created a SQL Server? Now I say, yes, I have created a SQL Server inside which the database will be created. So the rest, Elastic Pool, we've gone through that before. I explained everything. So we're just going to ignore that and keep going up and ahead. Here on networking is where it says that, hey, how do you want to connect? Through public endpoint or private endpoint. Public endpoint means over the internet you want to connect, or the topic that we're discussing now is private endpoint. So I'm just going to say that I want to connect through private endpoint. I want anyone who can connect through private endpoint to connect to me. That's what I'm saying in the SQL database. SQL database, anyone who can use private endpoint can connect. So any resources on Azure can connect to the private endpoint to any other Azure resource. So Nabi says, did we leave everything default on the first page of SQL database? So if I go there, yeah, that's the first page. So resource group you have to mention, database name you have to write yourself, and server, yes, that's you have to click create new server. Then you have to give the name of the server. So I click create new here. Yeah, here it's just username, password. The rest is default. No, I click the second option as well. Create server, create server. Okay, create server. And then the rest is default. Yes, the rest is default. Then when we go to networking, no Elastic. Elastic Pool is default. I mean, like Elastic Pool is just to save money. It has nothing to do with security or private endpoint right now. So we can leave Elastic Pool with whatever the configuration is. And working, we go to networking, and then here now we're selecting private endpoint. Then it's asking some more details. Private endpoint connections are associated with a private IP address within a virtual network. The list below shows all the private endpoint connections for this server. Note that private endpoint connections are defined at the server level and they provide access to all databases in the server. So it just says that, hey, tell me which private endpoint are you going to connect to? Now, this is a SQL Server, and it asks that what is the resource group? It's the same resource group where the free VNet that we created is located. Second thing is it's East US, same region. Third thing is that, hey, why don't you just name the private endpoint? I say, I'll just put that on a private endpoint dash endpoint dash one. Give some name there, your name. Target sub resource. So what is the actual private endpoint? So it's a SQL server that anyone else will be connecting to. That is the target. So then who is connecting? Which VNet is there from where virtual machine or someone will be connecting? So if I go there to the diagram, obviously that's what we discussed. So during the visit of the Azure SQL Server, and now the private endpoint is being created, right? So it is asking that, okay, our target is this guy, and from which VNet connection will be made. So I'm just gonna say that this VNet and this subnet uh, connection will be made to this Azure SQL server. So I'll just go back here. I'm saying that, okay, this is the VNet and this is the sub and net. And then private DNS integration. Yep, it says that, hey, you want to connect by IP or by name? So I say, yeah, please give me DNS services. So I'll be connecting to the SQL Server by name. It's okay, default. Now the private endpoint is being created here. Otherwise, you see that there's another tab here, the private link. You could have done that here as well, private endpoint and click create. But since that facility is already built into the wizard of the SQL database, we're doing it from here. Okay. So I'm just going to press O and K after writing all this. So once we press O and K, so private endpoint has been mentioned here now that this is the VNet from which expect some traffic to SQL Server. Okay, other than that, connection policy is default uses redirect policy for all client connections originating inside of Azure and proxy for all client connections originating outside. So it just says that, hey, if someone is connecting to you, SQL Server from within Azure, and uses redirect policy for all client connections. So it just redirects to the SQL Server from wherever the connection is request is coming from within Azure, and it proxies all other information connection requests that are coming from outside through Microsoft Backbone Network to SQL Server. Anyway, the rest of the information remains the same. TS 1.2, yes, transport layer security that encrypts traffic in transit, okay, or moving traffic. Security, and here, this is a specific SQL Server widget security. We're going to be going through the SQL Server security as well. And for now, no change on the security and additional settings. No change on the additional settings as well. Tags, no change on the tags. And then it is saying it's ready to create. So I'm just going to click 3 and 8. Okay, once it is created, well, what happened now is that, okay, so Naveed shows that it's 327 USD a month, right? I'm gonna delete it right away. So that's I was gonna drive that. Yeah. So yeah, it's 372 US dollar a month, right? So it's per month here. So yeah, if you keep running it for 1 month, yes, it's gonna cost that. We're just gonna delete that. So it's not gonna be even few cents. It's gonna be even lesser than few cents. So we're okay. All right. So what we need to do is that well, it's still getting created. So deployment in progress. Once it is created, we need to connect to the virtual machine. We need to download the SMS client. So if I go to the diagram here, we need to, so we are creating this. We have created this guy, SQL Server, and we have created this guy, the private endpoint. Now we need to go and install SSMS or download SSMS and install SSMS in the virtual machine. And from the virtual machine, because this is the client for the database, so from the client, we need to make a connection to the endpoint, through the endpoint to Azure SQL Server. And it's still getting created. Oh, he's taking time. Just showing all that, what is being created here. Now, still in the process. So, well, databases are always a bit free stuff, kind of stuff. And wow, it's taking time. I think I should move out of Toronto to somewhere where internet is faster. Oh, see, should have said that earlier. It just finished. Okay, so now I know its weakness. Okay, so the thing is, mine's still in progress. Oh, Naveed says, oh man, I think you started way ahead. I mean, no. Yeah, it's gonna be finishing. It took like I think 5 minutes or less, 4 minutes. Okay, yawn number 672. So once that is done, I'm gonna go to SQL databases here. Yep, there is a database here. If I go to the private link, tab now that is separately open and I refresh this, so there is the private link also created, and private link has its own IP 10.0.0.5. If this private link is used to connect to the SQL server, then it will be on, you will be using a private IP to connect to the SQL server. So obviously using private link is pretty much not touching internet. It is using Microsoft's own backbone network where you can connect through a private IP as if you're in your home network, like connecting one machine to another, or office network, connecting one machine in the office to another machine in the office. Right? O and K. So now, what do we need to do is we need to go to, I'm just going to go inside the private endpoint. And yeah, it will let anyone connect to the SQL server through it. And that's kind of all there is to the private endpoint. So I'm going to go to the virtual machine here, which is already open, right? I'm logged into the virtual machine. And in the virtual machine, I'm going to go to the browser. What I need to do is I need to download the client. If we go to the diagram, so we need to download this client, SSMS. And for that, I need to go to the browser here. And one more thing is that I need to go to this server manager here. Why? Because in this server manager, I need to go to local server and remove all the security restrictions on this Internet Explorer browser, right? So this is on IE enhanced security configuration. Otherwise, it's not gonna let us download the SSMS. Right? So need to turn it off. IE enhanced security configurations. I'm just gonna click the on button here. I'm just gonna click the off 2 times. So press OK after that, and refresh. And I am, so I'm gonna put there. Then I just download the SSMS directly. So I'm just gonna type here download SSMS. And then it says that I'm just gonna check the continue prompt when website content is blocked. I'll just click close. Okay, so I just type here in Bing the browser, the SSMS download. I'm just gonna go down to SQL Server Management Studio. I'm gonna click this link, and once this opens, I'll just download whatever first link offers me to download. So download SQL Server Management Studio S, M, and S. Once I click that, so there's that free download SQL Server Management Studio. I'll just copy this link for you in download SMS. Okay, so Oladapo has mentioned in the chat, and yes, that's a very good information that once you create a database, do not forget to delete it. So make sure that we delete the SQL Server, otherwise it will punch a hole in your pocket. Ta-da. So anyway, yes, obviously we're gonna all delete together everything. Ta-da. So here, I'm just gonna click that. I have put that link, and once it clicks, you have to do that inside the virtual machine. Remember, I'm inside the virtual machine here. in this virtual machine, not on your laptop, not on your laptop. It's inside the virtual machine that you created. And there's a link here coming. I'm just gonna click save. So it saves that setup.pnu running security scan, and then you give me the run button. Then I'll click that button and it's gonna start installation of. Here we go. There's the run button. Click the run and the installation starts. There we go. It says there. I'm gonna click in and install. Okay, so once it is installed, then we can make that connection. So Naveen says in the chat, sorry, where did you go to disable security on VM? Store manager, yeah. On the virtual machine, you go to this icon, suitcase and server icon. Like that, and go to local server, and then go to IE enhance security configuration. And if it is on, click the on button, and then click the off to time the here. All right. Great. So here, yep, it's still installing. Oh yeah, you have to click refresh. I mean, you have to click refresh on the here, this one. Then it will show off. Start showing off. Okay, so here my M and S is installed. I'll click close, and then I will click this Windows button, and there's the SQL Server Management Studio. I'm just gonna click that. It's gonna be open. There you go. It is open, and it is asking, "Hey, which database to connect to?" So we need to give it the SQL Server name because there's DNS services that are also available. And what it's not supposed to ask when we make a connection, that it's not supposed to ask our public IP from which we are connecting. So it's just supposed to just connect private IP. Okay. Um, so I'll just I'm inside the VM right now. What I need to know is server name and username password for authentication. So server name is what? I'm just going to go to the server name here and oh, well, actually, DNS name is not there, but that's the VM, right? So I'm just going to go to SQL database. This is the tab for SQL database. Click the SQL database here and go click the SQL database. And I'm in the overview here and I'll click the overview again because that's the server name. There's a copy clipboard. So I'm just going to copy that and because I was in the virtual machine where it was asking me what is the server name. So I'm just going to go there, click and Control V, will paste it. So that's the SQL Server address. Then I'm going to go for authentication, click that, and go for well, SQL Server authentication is also there. So I'm just going to select SQL Server authentication. Well, the username was uh, admin, and the password was small ABC, capital ABC, shift 1, 2, 3 without shift 1, 2, and 3. All right, so I'm just gonna make a connection here. Unless something is wrong, it should work. Ooh, whoa, that was fast. Well, actually, it worked. It connected, but what didn't happen is that it didn't ask for a private for a public IP to be added in the firewall. It just simply connected right away to the SQL Server. That's the SQL Server. The databases, security, integration services. That's the database. Right? But well, how do we know that the private endpoint really worked? I mean, is it through private endpoint that we connected? So, um, well, we are connected here to the database, right? So I'm just going to, oh, if I just try to check the connection, uh, oh, I'm connected already. Uh, this was the connection, right? And database engine was there. Okay, options. I said, oh, I'm going to cancel out from here. So that's one thing that I wanted to show. Well, it did connect from private IP and it didn't prompt window for asking what is your public IP, or it will show you automatically your public IP, and then you have to press OK to add it to the firewall and ask all that. So I'm just gonna mess this. Now I need to go to the private link, right? So this is the private link, and then this is the endpoint area, private endpoint. So this is the private endpoint, and application security groups. Well, we didn't put that there, but in the DNS, does say that connection to SQL Server is only through a private IP 10.0.0.5. So this is what it says: private endpoint, customizable visible FPDNs. IP address is this, and this is the SQL Server that can be accessed through this. Um, so that, and if I go to properties, insights. Now if I go for, now I have made a connection here, right? If I go to the network watcher, which is already part of the SQL Server, so I'll just right click and duplicate this, and go to the portal menu up there. Network Watcher might also let us see our resource group. And there's a Network Watcher there. And there's VM NSG, so it's a flow log. Oh, that's a flow log. Okay. But just simply go to the Network Watcher from here. That's it. Network Watcher application from search. And I need to see the topology. Does it really let me show now? Because I made a connection. There you go. It's this VNet that I want topology of, yes. And so there's private endpoint right now connected to the VNet, the default subnet. And this is the VNet, this is the default subnet. And there's this network card as well. There's VM, there's NSG, and there is VM1 IP. So private endpoint. So this is the private endpoint. Yeah, we have already visited that. Configurations of the private endpoint. Actually, that's not going to show anything. Network security group, insights. So the thing is that the topology, okay, so there's some insights showing here as well within the private endpoint. I'll just make this bigger and bigger. If it can somehow give us an idea, it just tells about itself that I have this, and I'm connected to this network. But who I'm connecting to who, that's what it's not showing here as well. So, yeah, one more thing here in private endpoint is suppose I disconnect this private endpoint. Although, does it let me? Because in private link, you can actually approve or reject. It will just drop the link. But in private endpoint, you can only delete it, not turn it off, right? You can't turn it off. So the private endpoint through which we can connect to SQL Server. So we did connect to SQL Server to it. It doesn't really active connections. I just wanted to show you from, oh, see this, we're connecting from this machine to the SQL. There is only one SQL Server, and through that machine, we connected to that, and the private endpoint is connected to the SQL Server directly. This means that anyone who wants to connect to SQL Server can connect through private endpoint. The SQL Server says there's one connection here. Okay, that could be it. So if I go to one connection and the base SQL Server online. Yep. It does say that yes, there somebody made a connection to me. The base says here, and if it can give more details, it is not giving more details, but it says that yes, one connection has been made. So that is all it says here. Activity log. Who's connected to this? People database. Nope. So yeah, it is the private endpoint. We were able to connect, but the thing is that even the topology of network watcher is not really showing the whole connection between two devices. If I go for one more thing here to connect SQL Server with authentication, we use SQL authentication. SQL authentication. Or you have to drop down. No. Okay, guys, I'm going to SQL Server and I'm just going to disconnect it. So how to disconnect? It's this button, disconnect. Then I want to connect again. So what is the button? So it's this button. Oh yeah, one more thing is from this SQL Server, I can do a ping to the private endpoint IP, right? That can also prove that this field is connected to Oh, that was a big sound. Alarm is alarming, alarmingly loud. All right, so yeah, this is the IP as I want to show. This is the IP of the private endpoint, which is connecting to the SQL Server. Can virtual machine ping this IP? It better. So this is the IP and ping. So, oh, sorry, not this SQL Server. Right. Let me just show you one more. That's going to be the proof actually. So if I go to the SQL Server, and this is the name of the SQL Server, right? So how is that machine able to connect to the SQL Server? Um, so I'm just going to go there and put that full SQL Server name because the ICMP protocol is not enabled, so it's not going to really reply the ping, but it's going to tell what is the IP associated with the SQL Server, and there it is. It says that your SQL Server, and that's the name of the SQL Server, is you're connected to the SQL Server through a private link, and the IP of that private link is this 10.0.0.5. So you're connected to the SQL Server through 10.0.0.5. So that's the proof that this virtual machine is actually using the private link or private endpoint to connect to the SQL Server through Microsoft Backbone. And the speed in which it is connected also shows that it's like right away it is connected. Otherwise, over the internet when you're connecting, it does take some time to connect. Not connecting like this. It's gonna take much more time than this, at least. This is like right away, as if it's the same network within, and you're not passing through internet to reach there, right? So, yep, that's the private endpoint and how to securely connect from within the VNet. So how to securely connect. So that's what we did. We just connected from install the SSMS and to the private endpoint whose IP was 10.0.0.5 to the SQL server, right? So the pinging would be the main thing there. That would be a proof that yes, from the virtual machine you can ping the name of the SQL server, and it shows that yes, with name this IP is being used. Just 10.0.0.5, which is the IP of private endpoint. Okay, so that's the private endpoint related. So let me show this. Yeah, can you um, you know uh, take a screenshot of the SSMS interface? What did you enter there? And okay, so oops. The Okay, so the connection details are here. No, 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 no. That's not the SQL Server name. So see this. You have to put the full SQL Server name. So this is the full name, database.windows.net as well. Not just the name, but the full QDN, qualified domain name. And copy from here, and you will be able to do that. So it's the full name. When you do that with the correct credentials, you will be able to connect. There's a set server firewall. So we didn't read that. Okay, sure. Right, good. So Guys, that's it for the private endpoint, and let us take a break and then come back to the next topic, which is the SQL Server security. And so let's take a break, 12:35. So 12:45, 5 minute break, and let us connect to our break. So starts 5 p.m. Muting and pausing. Back, resuming, and we're going to go ahead with the SQL Server related security. And for that, there's a well, it's about SQL Server, and SQL Server is installed, so we're kind of okay to keep it running for a little more while. So about SQL Server, there's another slide here. SQL Server types on Azure, Azure SQL, Azure SQL Managed Instance, SQL on IaaS, virtual machine. So if you install a SQL Server inside a virtual machine, so that's that. And Managed Instance, so Microsoft manages the whole thing for you. And then the Azure SQL, so you deploy all the, just like we deployed there. So that's Azure SQL. And Azure SQL needs globally unique name. So when you're creating Azure SQL, we just did that, and it needs a globally unique name there. An app need to connect to Azure SQL from Azure VNet. Then the application has to go over the internet. So we just simply did that. Um, Private endpoint lab. Uh, And obviously, we avoided to go over the internet by doing that lab. So obviously now we know that when a virtual machine needs to connect from a VNet, we need to connect to the private endpoint, and through that we can connect to the SQL Server using private IP, avoiding internet. If you don't do that, then obviously this is the way we connect from Azure to internet to Azure, right? So that's how it's connecting otherwise. So internet and it's a managed PaaS platform as a service PaaS. So Microsoft is responsible for its underlying hardware, operating system. Obviously, it's the SQL Server running on top of hardware. That hardware is maintained by Microsoft. So um, and there is Azure SQL Managed Instance. We can deploy it within a VNet, and apps within VNet can connect to it from Azure Private Network. So Azure SQL Managed Instance can be deployed within a subnet, and then you can connect from other virtual machines, just like we did with the private network. Then there is SQL in Azure Virtual Machine. So obviously we can install SQL Server inside a virtual machine like this. So we have this virtual machine here. Inside this, we install the SQL client, yes, but we can also install in this SQL Server, in this virtual machine, SQL Server full. But it's going to be pretty heavy, and it's going to take much longer time. So other than that, Azure SQL Security Overview. So customer data, we create a SQL Server, put customer data inside, right? So all the important data is inside. We need to secure it through different mechanisms with multiple security layers. So how do you secure SQL Server, which has the most critical, most important company data inside? So you have to have multiple security layers deployed there. So customer data inside that SQL Server database. Uh, how how do we secure that? The network security layer allows us to make sure which IP addresses and networks we connect to. So network security layer From there, you can just control that from which IP address the traffic can connect and which networks the traffic should connect. And then there is access control. So you can also have access control there. That is the second layer that can control access to security, that who gets access and from where and for how long, right? Then comes threat protection. So that's another set of security tools by Microsoft, uh, due to which those tools keep on monitoring who is connecting from where, what kind of protocol, connection protocol and authentication protocol that connection is using. And during the connection, there is no hacker attack. And at the end of the connection, it was the same person who was connected is the same person who is disconnecting now. So it has all the threat protection, has all types of tools to check that whoever is connecting to the customer data is the legit employee, or whoever is supposed to connect is connecting to the SQL Server and no one else, or no unauthorized person is connecting to SQL Server. And then there is information protection. So information protection, here we can encrypt data while in transit or at rest. So information protection, so data itself will be encrypted as well. It means it will be unreadable to unauthorized people. And then there is, a lab here, allow Azure services and resources to access server, enable advanced data security. We have certain labs for SQL Server as well. In Azure SQL portal, in Azure portal, select SQL servers. We already did that. Um, and there are firewall rules for the SQL Server that we can enable, although we have already talked about in detail the firewall. So if I just about firewall, so if I just go to my Firefox, where the database is right now connected, so there are integrations area, Power Platform, then there is security area. So there are these security related features that are available. Obviously, firewall you can enable on the VNet or virtual network level as well. And but there, here in the security, if I go to, there is auditing here. You can enable auditing, obviously. Ledger, that's another, enabling the ledger functionality at the database level will make all tables in the database updatable ledger tables. This option cannot be. So we're going to talk about that. Data discovery and classification. So you can discover data and classify it, which data is very critical, which data is less important. Dynamic data masking, we're going to talk about that. That is upcoming topic. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So there are some tools by Microsoft to safeguard the databases. And then there is transparent data encryption. So more encryption than before. Then is already available there. If I go to connection settings here, connection strings, compute, no, that's computer storage. Oh, I'm looking at the database, that's why. Hey, I need to go to the server, so I'm just gonna go to the search and type SQL Server. If I go to in search and go to SQL Server here, then I should see. So this is SQL Server. See this? This is the database, SQL databases. If I go to SQL Server, this is SQL Server. They're different. Database has the data. But database lives inside or can be accessed through SQL Server. That's the outer layer. So inside this SQL Server is database, right? So I'm going to SQL Server here, and I'm going to check that. And so there's database level security, and then there is that SQL Server to which it is attached. So SQL Server, where it was saying that add the address to the firewall. So that is normally that happens on the SQL Server level. But here, Azure Active Directory settings. So if you go to that, yeah, human who has username in Azure Active Directory can connect. SQL databases. So that's the database that we were talking about, or that is the other screen here. This is the database that we can see from inside the SQL server. Elastic pool, nope. Database, failover, import, export, networking. If I go to networking, so there is that private access, and then there is a public access. In selected networks, if we go for selected networks here, and then there is with VNet, we can connect. So guys, what I wanted to show you was where's the firewall setting for the SQL server, right? So the firewall setting would be there inside this VNet. So there's a virtual network. This is a virtual network, right? In the virtual network, we have firewall here as well. So the SQL database is connected to, let me just check that if SQL database is connected to this virtual network that I created, right? I go to the SQL server itself and go up to the overview. Networking, Active Directory admin, it actually does not show. Okay, if I go to the networking for SQL server, it is actually not connected to because we gave it a private access, right? Private endpoint. So, but private endpoint, we told specifically that private endpoint is connecting to that SQL server. So if I go inside the private endpoint, yes, it is connected to. The SQL server is connected to the private endpoint. Private endpoint is connected to the VNet. Which VNet? The VNet that we have here. So this means if I go to the diagram here, so SQL server is connected to the private endpoint is connected to the VNet. Now the firewall is on the VNet level. It's available, right? So anyone wants to connect to the database from outside, from home, needs to go through the firewall first, and then to the VNet, subnet, and then to the SQL server. So the firewall needs to be deployed. If I just go back here, so there's the firewall, and click here to add a new firewall. No firewall like this. No, last class we went through the firewall in detail, right? So you have to just create a firewall. You have to go through the whole thing and name it and standard. So you have to just put on the firewall there, and then it starts. Then you have to put who can connect and who cannot connect there, right? He says in the chat that means user from outside will be passing through 3 or 4. Well, when I was showing this diagram here, this. So now these are not hops. One hop is a router, right, or one endpoint. So this is actually just tools. One layer of tool, second layer of tool. They don't have their own. Now VNet has an IP address, but access control does not have its own IP address. It's not a device. It's not a just a set of tools. It's not an something that has an IP. It also doesn't have an IP. It's just set of tools. This is also set of tools only. So these are not 4 hops. This would be, yeah, exactly. Network physical devices will be a hop. Virtual devices that has IP address will be a hop. So these are just layers of tools that are providing security. And so we were talking about, yeah, the databases. So the firewall is there. When you enable that, then you can just add IPs of whoever can connect and whoever cannot connect, right? So I'm on the database. Here's the database I'm on, and this is the endpoint. So I'm basically on the SQL server here. Now, so this is the connectivity of the SQL server, and figure out one connections. But we are already connected with the private access, so that's why that's the only way we can connect. So all we can do is in a production environment, we can just create a firewall, and because it is behind the firewall, it will be behind the firewall. It is connected to VNet. VNet level, the firewall is there, so that's why it is behind that VNet, right? So in VNet level, when you create a firewall, so anyone from outside can have to go to the firewall, to the VNet, and to that. We talked about that before. Now, security of the database. So this is the database. This is the SQL server in which the database is, right? Through that SQL server, we only connect to the database. I'll go back here, and we're going to talk about some features of this. So networking, when you're creating databases, so there's, oh yeah, we can create a sample database which has some data inside. That's not, so we're still talking about security. So security risks, when an app is connecting to SQL database from over the internet, and hackers can try to steal the session, copy data for the network, etc., right? So this is when we are connected through internet, obviously hackers are waiting on the internet for any connection to be made, so they could disrupt that, or maybe hijack that connection, or disconnect it and reconnect again, but this time you're connected to the hacker instead of the actual server. So for the internet, they can do any kind of those attacks. So if firewalls and other security measures are not implemented, then obviously no defense in depth, credential loss, and data loss can happen then. So if there is um, so allow traffic from only specific subnet. So you can always make sure that which exact subnet the traffic expected from, instead of 000/0, which means anywhere on the internet traffic is allowed to the SQL server. Instead of that, you can say that, okay, from this 10.00/25 is where I am accepting traffic from. Then that really saves you from any other attacks launched from any other IP address. Uh, so we can also allow an IP only of DB admin to connect. Hence, hackers cannot try to hijack the session, as traffic is only allowed from specific IP addresses. Obviously, you can add the specific IP that only from this IP you can connect, and only from that IP you can connect. So then hackers from other IPs cannot connect them. Right? And install SQL Server, go to SQL Server, firewalls, and virtual networks. Disable allow Azure services and resources to access the server. Start SQL Server. My information slides. So I'll be sharing those all. Oh man, not only yawning, but now I'm sneezing as well. Thank God uh, we're online, and didn't reach you unless it converts to digital signals. And okay, no. Okay, so here it says that SQL Server. I think that's the older SQL servers. It says go to SQL Server and firewalls and virtual networks. The SQL Server. There's firewall and virtual networks. So there is says firewalls, but did they remove that, or am I not seeing this? So there's auditing, there's identity that has user identity, add, select assigned, user assigned manage identity, and for primary identity. They keep on changing, so that's why there used to be a firewall and networks column here, but it may not be showing because also that we have connected to the private endpoint. So managed and networking, it should be in the networking. Yeah, obviously, when we connect, so only approved private endpoint connections will be accepted by this resource. Any existing firewall rules or virtual network endpoints will be retained, disabled. Oh, there you go. So since we have connected it to private endpoint, that's why it's not letting us configure the firewall. So MS Defender for Cloud actually, um, MS Defender for Cloud actually is again a set of tools. It's not firewall. It doesn't have the firewall, but in firewall would be showing in the networking area. But this is just a collection of tools to just simply run some scans and prevent some suspicious connections, block some connections. That's all it does. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect this SQL Server from the private endpoint if I'm able to, and if it lets me. Yeah, there you go. The private endpoint, you can see there's a approve and reject. So that's another thing that we needed to know about private endpoint, that we can anytime reject the connection to private endpoint as well, and we can totally remove as well. So I'm just going to first reject connection, and it says that why don't you, do you want to reject the connection? Approve response message. Okay, yes, and just press yes. Failure. Status is not pending. Rejection 1 out of 1. Failed unexpectedly. Okay. I'll just refresh that and select that again. And I just want to remove it. Okay, it's removed. Yeah, it's gone. Now, what I'm expecting is that if I go somewhere else and then go to networking, now, yes, now it's showing selected networks, right? So selected networks, when I go there, connections, virtual networks, there you go, the firewall rules. That is on the SQL Server level. So there are firewall rules on the SQL Server level other than SQL Server that you can create on VNet. Other than that, the local firewall rules here as well. And that pretty much just say that who needs to be connected. Suppose I want to connect, right? So I'll just say that here that Amir dash home, and then I will have to put my IP, which is this IP, right? And it changes real soon. So I connected the SQL Server and I put my IP because there's no range. So I'll just put the same IP again. And that's it. That's how now this from this IP a connection can be made. From this IP connection can be made to the server. So first thing is that if you have a private endpoint, you cannot um, configure the firewall settings. You're already connecting securely, right? But if you remove the private endpoint, yes, then this is the way you can add different. Suppose there are 3 or 4 admins that are connecting to this database. So you can keep on adding their public IPs, and when their public IP changes, DSL IP changes, home DSL IP changes, then they will tell you again, and then you can just add that new public IP there, right? So so exceptions, allow Azure services and resources to access server. You can click that as well. Full network rule. So which virtual networks you're expecting traffic from, you can just add that too, right? So this is the VNet, but suppose we have 10 or 20 VNets here. So which VNet, from which VNet people can connect to this firewall or to this database, right? So you can select the VNets in Azure or whoever's connecting from outside their IP address can connect here as well. So now we see that if we go for public network access for the SQL Server, then we can add a firewall like this. It is private access. It's already secure. And then there is connectivity here that also shows, which is by default should be the same unless you want to have the connection redirected some other way. But this is not security. Private access, public access has security issues. Security facilities, right? So that's what, oh, I did not save it. If I just add that, I showed you that then you can add the IP addresses, right? I'm just going to discard that. If I go to the slide again, so yeah, that's what it was saying here, that it's firewalls and virtual networks. I just showed you here. And then there is, that's what it was showing, firewalls and virtual. This is the older picture when I was teaching and had changed that. Now it's all inside the networking area only, as we saw just now, right? And yeah, so what else? There's SQL access control. So there is authentication, there is authorization. database roles, role level security, there is authentication, SQL authentication, and Azure AD authentication. So we already talked about authentication when we were creating the SQL server. So at that time, it was asking, hey, you want only Azure or AD authentication? Or you want Azure AD and SQL authentication? So I selected Azure AD and SQL authentication. Then I created a local SQL username password, which was created inside a SQL server, right? So then authorization. So this is database roles, role level security. This is another level of security. So if I go back to the database here, I'm connected already to the database, right? If I go to this machine from there to SSMS, I'm already connected to the database, right? Oh, I removed the private endpoint now. Uh, now now my IP to this will be added because now it's public access. Last to add my IP, small is equal to issue 123 without issue 123. Or it will just say, hey, who do you think you are? Oh, SQL Server authentication. No, it's okay. And my SQL Server is there. But now this machine is. Okay, so I'm just going to take the public IP of this machine. Where is this machine? Where's this machine? What is the IP? Public IP is this, right? So I'm just going to copy the public IP here. And where we were talking about that in the firewall, we can add that IP. Control C, I copied it. You go to the SQL Server, networking, and selected network. It was disabled, so no one can make a connection now. Here, private access, I already deleted the private endpoint. So on public access, I need to enable it first, right? Otherwise, obviously no one can connect. Select networks. Now I need to add that IP, public IP of my machine, right? So Amir-VM connection con. Okay. And public IP, right? So now I'm actually adding, trying to add that and allow, what's going on here? Connections from the IP address is configured in firewall rules section below will have access to the database. By default, no public IP addresses are allowed. Yeah. Oh, I think I have left a space. Yes, there was space. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, there is a space. Okay. That's why I didn't like space. Okay. Now we're good. So this machine is supposed to be able to connect to the database. So I'm just saving that. And I'm adding that to fail to update the server firewall rules for server, blah, blah, blah. What? Strict transport security. No, no cache. Okay. Deny public endpoint enabled. Able to create or modify firewall rules when public network interface for the server is disabled. To manage server or database level firewall rules, please enable the public network interface. Yes, it's in the network interface of this, because we had configured the private endpoint, so its network interface card also has issues. And virtual network allow virtual networks to connect. Oh yeah, I need to allow the virtual network. Which virtual network the traffic is expected? I'm telling it that, hey, this virtual network, virtual machine is about to make a connection to you, right? So this is virtual ignore missing Microsoft SQL endpoint. So enable, saying that expect traffic from this VNet. So it says, okay, now the traffic. So I'm just going to click somewhere else and then I'm going to click back here. So the VNet should be showing. It is not showing VNet groups and then networking. Well, I added the VNet and it has been showing. Okay, I'll add that again. There's subscription, new VNet rule 1. Yeah, that's the only VNet I have. Okay. it did say successful. It's not showing. Maybe I'm expecting it to show real soon. Too soon. I'm expecting it to show. That's why maybe it's in the background. Um, okay, there you go. Now it shows. So now it knows, SQL Server knows that from this VNet and subnet, this subnet, uh, someone will try to connect to it. Who's that someone? I'm just gonna click that as well. Or okay, without clicking this, I'll try to make a connection first. Plus, sometimes from the client side also, it tries to. Oh, there you go. I'm connected. Yay! Because I allowed the whole VNet, I'm connected, and it didn't ask me to uh, add a public IP there. So I'm connected again. So once this connection is there, then I was gonna show you this database roles, right? So uh, database roles are that you have to go to the database, obviously. There's database here, and if you right click the database and go to properties here, so normally there are options there, general. Oh, okay, it's the database. Yeah, database roles would be not here. It would be in the security. These are the roles. So we expand. So these are the database roles. DB access admin is the top role here. And if I double click that, or actually right click and go to not new database roles, but I need to actually add that someone here. So I'll go to new role. So new database role, yeah. So we can either go for new database role, or we can run a query to create a database role there. So normally we add database role through, what's that? I think then I have to go to database still because I need to add someone. Suppose I want to add someone. So why database query? Yes, you can add. There is security area as well, security policies through which you can add as well. But once you are there, Azure Studio, yeah, so through that you can do that. Management portal, properties, okay. Oh, permissions. There's permissions, and in the permissions, suppose I go for search, and yeah, there you go, database roles. So suppose I enter the object name. Suppose I click browse here, and who is connecting? Public connection guest is connecting. And what role needs to be done? Object types. There's object types there. So there is application roles, database roles. This is the database roles. All roles can be given, right? And browse can just take you to that. So when I press OK, now you can actually choose that what kind of permissions you want. So if I go back here again, well, I actually selected all. Otherwise, it would have shown just database roles, but now it's mixed up here. That's a long list of what you want to give this user. You want to grant what kind of connection you want this user to grant connectivity. They should be able to connect and create any database. Do you want the user to create any database? So it goes on a lot. And create role. You want the user to create role as well. So that's all area you can go in. So this is also obviously related to security, that you can assign only that role to the user the user is supposed to have. Suppose the user is not experienced and you assign that user the highest role or highest permissions and privileges, so that user will then really destroy the database. I mean, critical data, important data of the users. If I go back here to the slide, so that's where it says database roles. Then there is role level security. Row level security. What is that? And I should have added the a sample database for that. So normally there are tables here, right? And in the tables, there's supposed to be some information. Suppose I create a new table here, um, and then put here first name, and that is an NCAR, which is 10 characters you can put there. Last name, suppose. So these are the columns that you're creating, and the city and country and phone number, typical form there. So when you have created that, so these are showing here. If I then there's that table name, so you can just simply save table. It's the ask but name, so form, right? So you can just say entry form and then press OK here. So some kind of form it gets created, but a table gets created here. Refresh. Now there is an entry form table created, right? So when you go here and select top 1,000 rows, there is, well, just this first name, last name, city, country. You add more information there, obviously. Then you can do that. So now this is rows and columns. I wanted, if I just add a new database here, and if it could let me add a sample database, Microsoft also provides a sample database of a company where there's a make-believe data available there. Uh, because I want to show you data masking, where you can mask data or protect data, which is okay. So this is the database. No, it doesn't let me actually add. It lets me create a new database, but it doesn't let me add a sample database, which has all the information and rows and tables. Suppose I need to add a quick uh, yeah. So here database, and I just wanted to add some more, information there. But I'm not a DBA, and I used to do that, but I for and got that from Excel sheet. We can import data as well. I don't have Excel sheet as well, and just put some data there. So I'm just on the other side. I am really putting something there right now. Yeah, there's a create table with some information as well. So I'm looking on the other side some queries, which helps to add some data as well. But those queries are, these queries, or we can run those queries. So it just creates a table. It creates those fields there. Field 1, field 2, field 3. Second stage table is a copy of the active table without that surrogate key column. Is table, and then select from. So it doesn't give me that quick way to enter data. Anyway, the thing is that if we had created during the creation of that SQL server, there was database that could have been created there, which was a sample data. So if I go to SQL Server here, there's database here. I can create quickly another database, right? So I'll just go quickly with the honor DB2 and no redundant. So networking. I want to. There is allow Azure services and services. Current IP address. Add current IP address. Well, I can configure that as well. There, right now, nothing in the networking security, nothing in the security additional. So if I go back, I just needed to tell it which SQL server it should be created. So it is going to be created inside the same SQL server that I already have. Nothing, and I changed nothing till now. With a larger, no. So there's a sample database. So on the additional settings, I selected sample instead of none. It has a lot of data already. Right? That's the only thing I'm creating tags, review plus create, and create. We're about to delete it anyway. But it's creating another database in the SQL server we already have. It should not take forever. It's a small database. It has already some tables there. Oh man, seriously. I needed to have some data to show some other stuff as well. Data masking, for example. But while it is installing, we can just talk about row level security that is still upcoming. So strongly suggested to use Azure AD authentication. So this is what it says. SQL Server authentication that we chose. It is actually not recommended. Azure AD authentication is recommended. So all you need to do is just click that option, and then whichever user accounts you have in Azure Active Directory, those you can use. So whichever accounts you have in this Azure Active Directory, from those accounts, you can log in as well. So I have like these users here in Azure Directory. Then if it is Azure SQL authentication, then or Azure authentication configured, then it will be that you can just use the Azure Active Directory users. The database is also done. If I go to the virtual machine here and disconnect and then connect again to the SSMS client, put the username and password, I hope it shows the database is there. Yeah, now there's another database, but this database has a lot of entries and tables. So if I expand the tables here, so that there's a lot of tables here, while the other database and tables, there's only one table here, right? So it has a lot of tables, customer address, customer only. So suppose I go for 1,000 rows. So it has so many columns here, and this is just make believe customer data from Microsoft. Suppose meaning that there's a company called Adventure Works, and there are so many employees in Adventure Works, right? So once you download it or deploy a sample database, then you can really do some practice on that. If I go to the slide here, yes, Azure authentication is recommended. That's also a security measure for databases. Apply security principle of least privilege. So obviously assign fixed database roles to administrator user groups. We talked about database roles already. I showed you where it is, and then how to add a user, and then select one by one the roles. Create user-defined database roles. You can create your own database roles as well. There was a create new role here showing. Use application role or execute as statement of. So now it's specific to DBAs that what you should be doing there. But we should at least know that this is what they say to secure database. Then there is group membership or execution context to restrict access to rows in a database table. So even you can just check that which row a user cannot see, an unauthorized user cannot see. Suppose there are so many rows there. If you go inside this, so there's row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, right? So suppose rows 3, 4, and 7 should not be shown to a user, so you can do that too. Within the database, you can hide rows. And let's connect our SQL Server to Azure Admin. So this user can log in. So there's a set admin here. So yes, we can connect from Azure Administrator as well. This is the way, and this is Active Directory admin in SQL Server. So if you go to SQL Server here in SQL Server, and then is there Azure Active Directory showing here? Yeah, there is Azure Active Directory showing here. Yeah, I have unsaved Azure Active Directory. So with Azure Active Directory and set admin is there, although I did set admin, but I'll click set admin here. Now this means whichever user you have created in Azure Active Directory can be added to the SQL Server, and through those users you can also log in. I'm just going to click save here. So it's successfully saved. So this is how you can add users to the database or SQL Server. This is Azure Active Admin, and it's this one. And then yeah, copy this. Okay, and do what? Save. Yeah. Okay, we did that. And what? That's it. Yeah. And then go to tape. Then disconnect and connect object. And then you change in the SSMS. Yeah. Active Directory Universal with MFA. So and then you put the Azure Active Directory one that you are. Then it will ask all that, and finally it will connect. So I'll just show that. I'm gonna disconnect because I already did that. Added the user there. Admin. Now I'm going to change from SQL authentication to Active Directory Universal with MFA, and then I need to have this whole username with me. So if this is Azure Active Directory, this is the username that I added as admin for database. So I'll just copy the whole name here and hopefully paste it. Otherwise, I'll have to write okay, paste. And I changed the authentication. So they were saying that don't use SQL Server authentication, better to use Active Directory authentication. So if I make a connection here, although I will, then it asks for password. It says what is E 223 sign in, and it asks for, because I configured MFA, so it's asking the code. It's coming to my cell phone. There it is. 496 6. And now, yes. So I'm connected through Azure Active Directory, but all you need to do is change the authentication type, right? So that's done. And yeah, it's connected successfully. And an Azure user with reader permissions only. Well, yeah, you can just add a user through reader permissions as well. So there's a execute the query. So there's query here as well, which is not written. But you can give through queries different user created in the security section of the master database. So you can create users there. I'll send you the slide. Once you have the database, you can just run all the queries, and it's all step by step, just to give one user the read access. In fact, there it is. But you have to have those users already inside Azure Active Directory as well. So those users you can copy paste here as well. Yes, to give users access, so there's that steps, but obviously if you give read access, then the users will be able to connect. Right? So that's it. If we go ahead, Azure data protections, and then there is data protection here. Encrypt data at rest, encrypt data in transit, dynamic data masking. If we go there, transparent data encryption, always encrypted, encryption in use, encrypt Azure SQL data at rest. So transparent data encryption just means that enabled by default using key protected by server certificate or use customer managed key in Azure Key Vault. So that's just few million more slides. So what we can do is we can continue then next week because that's a bit longer topic. I need to show the labs as well. So we'll create a database next week and then we're going to finish the data masking. And hopefully next week we might finish the course by going through some smaller topics and go through many tools there. So, yep, we're going to be continuing next week. And so it's not enough time to go through the lab. So, okay, I'll be sharing that with you, but we will be able to go through the remainder of the topics by next Saturday. Guys, so have a nice weekend, nice long weekend. And yeah, I need to delete everything, so I'll be deleting that now. Source groups. Oh yeah, Chris, if you can stay a little, make sure that you're added to the LMS of access. I'll just initiate that delete the resource group, cloud shell storage. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. I'm just initiating the delete and then so once a delete are right, thank you. So Chris, let me just quickly because I know I will forget that. So admin. Chris, what's your email? Uh, Chris Lawrence, right? Chris, is that your email, Chris Lawrence? Yes. No, that's me.
Yes, that's me, sir. That's me.
All right. There we go. So enrollments and hey, what's the name of this course? It's this one. All right, now you should have access. O and K.
And you'll be starting on the new course. Like, where do I
This
see the
course
information on
will be
all the
finishing.
courses?
Yeah, so this course will be finishing next Saturday. So after that Saturday, I'm launching the new one.
But like, a list of all the courses. Where do I find them? Because I saw it before somewhere on a like, but I'm not seeing it again on like the days.
Well, all the list is actually here. You go to
Oh,
the
it's now in
LMS.
this. That's the LMA, the LMS.
In the LMS, yeah. So where you were logging in. So
Oh,
what
so
you
now
are,
that you've added that course, I can see all the courses because I can't see anything in there. It's just, when I log in, it's just blank. There's nothing
oh yeah,
there.
so I just enrolled you, and now you can see what is enrolled. But the list of courses is what I'm showing you here. But I'll separately show the list as well. But this is all showing, it's in the video now as well. It's recording. So when you get the video, you see the list. It should be showing if you're not signed in and you go to the site here, itprofcourses.fedora. And also you should be able to see all the courses there. And then you can just ask for login or enrollment.
Okay, so I'll check it and keep in touch because I want to like do a course or another. I wanted to do the other one, but the time. But I'll look at it now that this one has been completed, and then I can decide later.
Okay. All right, guys. So have a nice weekend.
Okay. Come on, thank you, sir. Have a good one
Thank
too.
you. All right. Thank you.